Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Launch Code. Is that pretty vanilla for me to do an announcement like that? Or
no, I thought it was perfect. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
We have everybody here. So we've got JT's actually producing this episode.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
And we have our new intro music, too. So you just got introed very nicely.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We've got Matt.
You know, I feel like I haven't frequented this show a lot lately, but, you know, it's good to be back.
It's great. It's a great show. We've done like a wide variety of episodes. I think this one is going to go down as one of our best shows.
I agree.
Right?
Yes, I agree. This is going to be one of our...
Zero expectations, Steven.
Zero expectations. Today we got Steven Taslitz. We've been working with Steven for... Gosh, I don't know, 6 months now?
Yeah, that feels good.
Yeah, it feels good, about 6 months. And I guess we could also tell everybody this is our business partner. So as of last month, we signed a document and said, you know what, we're all going to be married in business for at least the next several years. And we couldn't be happier to be partnered with Steven and the guys that he is with as well. Without further ado, I want to have him introduce himself and talk about his personal history in business and kind of how he found himself to the Launch Code podcast sitting in front of, well, Matt's ego, Matt, and myself.
Exactly.
So take it away, Steven.
I started off in business going around with my dad to some of his real estate businesses and healthcare businesses when I was a kid. My dad worked 7 days a week and wanted to spend a lot of time with his son. So he chose as a way to spend time together to mentor me as a young kid and take him with on Saturdays and Sundays to his side jobs, which was running some other businesses. So I've been involved in business really, or exposed to it my whole life. Always worked all kinds of different jobs. And then when I had a choice to make, to play sports in college and focus on that or go get up some business degrees, my dad kind of pushed me into go get an accounting degree. You always were interested in business. So I kind of got rid of the fantasy of being an athlete and decided I was going to, you know, go into business and do my own thing. And I did it really because I wanted freedom. I think the key to, truly freedom is if you can have financial independence and you can do what you want to do. And so I always wanted a lifestyle where I could do what I wanted to do and I wasn't going to be dependent on anybody else. So starting out after college, I took a couple of bold steps and started a company when I was 23 years old with 3 guys, storing medical records on optical media just when computers were starting and optical media was starting. And we wound up selling the business to Blue Cross Blue Shield. And we all walked away as multimillionaires.
How long did it take to sell that business?
20 months.
Whoa.
And we walked away with, 8 figures between the 4 of us. And now we were young guys with a little bit of experience and a little bit of money. And that's kind of how we got started.
So what was your first step? So, how old are you at this time?
So I just turned 59, January 14th.
Okay.
Happy birthday.
That was...
Thank you.
You were 23, is that what you said?
23.
23 when that happened. What was your first step? So you became a millionaire at 23 years old. What was
25. Started at 23. Yep.
Okay. So it was your first step. At that point, was there ever an idea that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to retire? Or, because I think a lot of guys have this perception like, you know what, I've got a bunch of money now, I'm just going to go relax. Was that like your first step? Your first thought? What I'm interested in is what did you do right after that?
Our first, I guess, what did I do? Mm-hmm. I flew out to California, rented a Mercedes, drove around with the top down, and said, God, this is so fun that I can afford to stay at a nice hotel and drive
So
a
that
nice
was the first thing you spent the money, like once the money hit your account.
I got on a plane, flew out to L.A., rented a Mercedes convertible sports car instead of some kind of Ford something,
right.
And just said, man, this is what it feels like. And I think I got the presidential suite at some hotel, and I thought, man, I'm living.
How long did that last?
About a week, and my wife said to me, get your ass back on a plane. We're never moving to California. Go back to work.
What did work consist of? Like, what
work
did you do?
consisted of a lot of failure and a lot of success starting and buying businesses. So from the time I was 25 until probably for 15 years, my partners and I started 5 or 6 companies in all kinds of different sectors and went out and started buying businesses with friends and family money. And that's what we did. And we had incredible failures, and we got really lucky, and a few things worked out, but we just learned a ton of lessons about business models, how to deal with people, and trying to understand not to think you took super genius pills when things work out well, and not to think you take stupid pills when things don't work out well. And then I just met a ton of really successful people. And getting back to your first question, did I think I was going to retire? No, because every time we met guys who were older, the guys who'd made a lot of money who retired, they were miserable. And the guys who kept working were happy. So I've always thought the key to the game of life is always to be relevant and stay working. I hope I never retire. I think the game is to always work. You don't want to make money to retire. You want to work and make money so you can stay in the game, because when you get in the game, it is the ultimate great game to play.
Well, I guess that's where that financial independence would come in, because if you do need a break from the game per se, you could take a month off to.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you get, it's like addicting. When you start, and to me at this point in my career, it's like working with you guys. I love working with entrepreneurial guys where I can learn stuff from. I can hopefully share some of my successes and failures with them and help them hopefully build interesting businesses. To me, that's super fun. It's as fun as when I was a little kid playing football in the backyard and basketball after dinner and all the shit I used to do when I was a kid. To me, that's what business is now. It's just, I'd rather do this than anything else. So I have no plans to retire. And it's not about the money. It's about doing really fun things, hanging out with people you want to hang out with every day.
I mean, you have a laundry list of businesses you've been involved with, and I think I've only scratched the surface in
Laundry list,
conversation
it's
with
like
you.
a book.
How
It's more
many-
of, you need a binder.
Yeah,
is.
how many businesses have you been in part of, like in any way? Do you have a number on that?
Probably, at least 100, if not 200, 150,
Wow.
at least, yes. From, $5 billion in revenue to, just lots of startups. So we've started businesses from scratch with ideas that we've built into billion-dollar businesses and successfully sold. And we've started businesses where we've just poured money into them and blown, and the businesses we've lost all our money. And then we've bought things and grown them, and we've bought things and had them implode on us. So we've just lots of different businesses and lots of industries, lots of success, lots of super success, and lots of failure as well.
It's kind of a bold question, but after all of these years, what would you say your most favorite thing about businesses and your least favorite thing about businesses?
So my most favorite thing about business is the people that you hang out with when you're in the wars every day in the trenches. And my least favorite thing is the people too. It's people. People are the things as a human being that you love the most, like the camaraderie. I think it's genetically how we're wired as human beings to want to be with other human beings and want to go to war together, whether it's really war or sports or business. But people also disappoint you more because we are so flawed as human beings that we want to do things, but we can't get out of our own way. So the worst thing about business, we always say business would be easy if it wasn't for the people, but it's why you stay in business, because of the people that you get to deal with.
And are you still in business with some of your very original partners?
Yeah, I am in businesses I started it with myself and 3 other guys, and myself and 2 other guys are still in business 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you look back on it, early on, some of the big successes and failures, if you started to categorize those and say, these were some of the most important failures and successes that I made early in my career that kind of got me to where I am today.
The first thing is not being afraid to ask. You know, I often say, if you don't ask, you don't get. So in any kind of a negotiation, in any kind of a deal, in any kind of a thing, you can't be afraid to ask. You can't be afraid to ask for something because you just never know what someone's going to say. So ask. And that's, I think, really important. The other thing is, tons of entrepreneurs make a mistake that they think the key is how much of the business they own. But what's the most important thing is you'd rather own a smaller part of a business that has a better chance of being successful based on the people you're in business with, the capital the business has. So what we learned early on is, you know, make sure you have, if you think you need $1 million, make sure you raise 2. If you think you need $5 million, make sure you raise 10. Always raise more money than you need. Don't be worried about the dilution. It's irrelevant. Make sure you have enough capital, because we see so many businesses fail because people don't have the money to stay in the game. We go through economic cycles. You go through experimentation with different things. If you're limited with capital, it's hard to stay in the game, and you can get knocked off and you can miss your opportunity. So, you know, lessons learned, make sure you have plenty of capital and don't worry about dilution.
What if you don't have capital?
If you don't have capital and you can't attract capital, then ask yourself the question, why? Why wouldn't intelligent people want to invest with me? And then say, am I so much smarter than everybody else that they're not seeing it? Right? So if no one's interested in what I'm doing, then you got to ask yourself the question, what is it about my business model, what I'm trying to do that no one actually gives a shit other than me? And maybe you're right, but there's probably a good chance you're probably missing something.
It's a very valid point.
So,
you gotta. It's kind of just like the like American Idol type thing where they're up there trying to sing and they just can't. You know, some people have the dream of doing it, but you're just not there.
that could be, you know, the pain of reality sometimes soaks in, I guess. But.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're just like in the wrong industry. Like I've been involved with guys who've come up with really interesting hardware solutions. One of my former partners, he came up with an idea to transform how drugs are distributed in nursing homes. And he wanted to use robotic hardware manufacturing to solve how drugs are going to be distributed in nursing homes. And it was better for the government in regards to there's less drugs being distributed waste from a waste point of view, better for patients. There was a higher probability that we're going to get the right stuff. It was more efficient for the nursing homes. But you know what? People don't like investing in hardware businesses. And so we spent tons and tons and tons of money, but the lesson learned, we had a hard time raising money. Every time we talked to really smart people about it, they're like, we're not so interested. And we kept on saying, well, they don't get it. This is such a great solution. But what we didn't hear is investing in hardware. A lot of people, there aren't great examples of people making money in hardware businesses. Hardware changes, things change. People like software businesses because they're not as capital intensive. You have higher margins. So what people are trying to tell us that we didn't want to hear, even though we had an elegant solution, was hardware manufacturing is a terrible business model. Don't do it. We heard we're smarter than them. They don't get it. They don't get the solution. Now, 10 years later, after we poured ridiculous amounts of money into it, it finally took off, and we're actually going to do okay with it. But what we didn't really get when we started it is hardware businesses generally are not a place to put your capital.
Well, how important do you think timing is to having you've got a great business plan, you've got what you think is a solution, so you've solved a problem. How important is timing, do you believe?
I think timing, being in the right place at the right time, is everything. I think I forgot there was a big Silicon Valley venture successful guy who analyzed like 500 investments, and they looked at what were the things that made the difference. Was it the management team? Was it the business model? Was it they were adequately capitalized? And what it really came down to in regards to why more companies succeeded the most, it was timing. They hit the market at the right time. You can be too early or you can be too late. Like Groupon's a perfect example. There were a bunch of people that tried to do the Groupon thing before Groupon did it, and they all failed. And when the guy who launched Groupon launched it, they actually reworked some technology they had and said, well, everything we've been trying to do with this technology doesn't work. Let's try this as a last-ditch effort, and it worked. It was timing. So I would say people that have studied this more than I would say timing.
I got a question for you, Steve. So you have been in hundreds of capital pitch meetings.
Yeah.
What are the first kind of assessments that you're doing in the first hour in these things, as far as when somebody's trying to pitch to you? Like, what are the things you're highlighting on? Like whole person concept, intellect. Like, what are you looking at? That first hour that you're in there with somebody that's trying to get money.
Are they self-aware enough to know what they don't know? Like, are they willing to really listen? Most entrepreneurs are really headstrong. That's why they're entrepreneurs. They're willing to take a risk and jump and do something. And so when we're meeting people with new ideas, we're looking for people that are comfortable enough in their own skin that you can actually have a conversation with them. They're like, I actually don't know this, or I'm going to hire these people because they're better at this than me. So you want to work with people that know what they don't know, have strong beliefs in what they think they're really good at and why you're backing them, but also are comfortable enough in their own skin. They're going to hire like unbelievable talent around them, because it really is, business is a team sport. And in order to win, you got to build out a whole team. So we look at, can this person really build a team? And are they intellectually honest with what they're going to need to do to win?
It's very valid. I feel like it's like the whole focusing on core competencies kind of thing, and knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're bad at. And
a lot of people have ego problems.
And I would like to hear, what are some of the fastest meetings that you've ended and why?
Yeah.
Have you ever walked out of a pitch?
Or told somebody to pack up their shit and take a hike?
I think that if somebody, I've had people come in and just say things that are just like, I think are ridiculous. And then so I'll know in 3 minutes, like why are they even in here? We see I've seen thousands and thousands of businesses. I mean, we look at 1,000 businesses a year. And so I'll take a look at the business model, the sector, and then, occasionally if we get to the point where we're willing to meet with a team, I get a good feel, because I've been doing this for 35 years. Are these people I think I could coexist with or not, and why? And so if I'm bored, and I try not to be a dick. I really don't. I try not to be a dick, but I do often make snide, sarcastic, snotty comments, because I get bored and I try to entertain myself, but I don't think it's like the best version of myself. I'd rather be thoughtful and try and help someone out than be a jerk. But, we all do the best we can.
That's why I'm on board. So I'm always the biggest jerk in the room. I'm well aware of my stance here.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, you don't want, I give anyone who's got the balls to start their own business, I give them credit for having the balls to start their own business.
Well, so when you've looked back on your career and the guys that you've seen come through on a consistent basis, is there one thing that one piece of sage advice that you could tell guys before you show up to a meeting to try to ask for money? What is it that they need to? What do they need to do?
X, Y, and Z.
X, Y, and Z. Like your top 3 things.
Yes. The number one thing is you need to be able to say, like I always say, when you're talking to me, pretend I'm your 5th grade child. Mm-hmm. You need to explain to me really simply why your business deserves to exist. Mm-hmm. So again, you come home from dinner, you're talking, after work, you're talking to your kids. If you can't explain to me the way you'd explain to your 5th grade children why you're doing this, then there's a problem. So first is, it's got to be simple. 2 is you need to really be able to convince the person you're with why you're aligned, like why your interests are aligned, why what you're asking them to do, why if it works for them, it's going to work for you. Too many times people come in and their business, their proposal to us isn't aligned. It's not a win-win. 1 + 1 does equal 3. When you're going to be partners with people, the deal's got to make sense. And so I'd say the things are come in with a realistic approach about what you want to do and why the valuation makes sense, why it's a good fit, be able to articulate the value proposition, and then you have an opportunity. But don't try and bullshit somebody, and don't propose something that is so complicated that everyone's sitting there going like, what's the guy saying?
Right. It's interesting because the first time I met you was in Chicago when I came out to your office, and it was, everybody it's an intimidating atmosphere. You know, everybody's sitting at a table. I'm the jackass here, you know, that I'm, wearing a collared shirt. I typically don't. Hey, and here's BlackRifle. You know, what do you guys think? And you were probably the most intimidating person in the room by far, but it wasn't because of necessarily your presence or the position of the table. It was because you asked very specific questions that were like right to the meat of what you're trying to get to. Because it was just an interesting dynamic. I think you might have.
So I care about when somebody comes in. I care. I want to listen and hear what they have to say, but once I get it, or I think I get it, then it's really just like, what's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth question I need to understand to see, is this real?
Right.
Is this hold up? And so, too many people like hear a pitch and they're spending so much time just like assuming what the person's saying is true that they like miss the point that like what your job as somebody who's trying to decide is something you're interested in is to really start digging and start peeling back the layers and seeing if the story really holds up. And so like in our meeting, the reason it went well is every time I kept on asking you more and more and more questions, everything you said to me made sense and there was a foundation. Now, when you guys left and we decided we thought we were going to work something out, it's always like, assume it's true, but verify, right? We verified everything that you told us, but I wouldn't have even spent the time verifying it if I thought this is just a bunch of fucking nonsense.
It's like everything's good in theory. That's probably one of my biggest takeaways from you is how you always kind of peel back the skin, and every kind of thing that someone's trying to do in a business, you have to validate that and show, okay, can this work? And there's always a sprinkle of luck, I feel like, to everything, but you really make people define what they're doing and will it work?
Yeah, going through that 2-day thing that we did, I mean, that was like eye-opening. in general, after being in business for 4 years, it was like, holy cow, this is deep.
Well, and I think, from our side of the fence, we knew that we needed a partner.
Yeah.
We knew that we needed a strategic partner, and I knew the kind of partner that I wanted.
Yep.
But I think there were probably 20 companies that we talked to or people that we talked to. And within, I think, a good portion of like a few hours, I knew that it wasn't the right fit. Guys would show up in like really expensive clothes and suits, wearing things that like
watches.
Hey man, we're just not even going to be cut from the same cloth like ever. And I walked in to because I'd prepared all of that information. I wasn't like rehearsing it or anything. I was just like, I didn't really. I hate to say it, I didn't really give a shit because I was more of like, okay, these guys are going to be either good dudes in a way that they're going to be principally aligned with me and the company, or they're not. And if they're not, like, I know the information is the information, 2 + 2 = 4. I'm not going to change it. I can't do anything about it. And ultimately, if we did have to do a deal, I also knew that everything that I said had to be real because we were going to be business partners. So if you peeled back the hood and found out like, man, you told me this is a 12-cylinder Maserati and it's only got 8, like, okay, well, it's done.
Well, that's why I like doing these kind of deals, Evan, better versus just buying a company. Because when you're buying a company from somebody who's selling 100% of it, you're on the opposite side of the table from that. Mm-hmm. And after the deal goes through, if they told you, this was a unicorn and you actually thought during your diligence it actually is a unicorn, and then they leave and you're like, holy shit, this ain't no unicorn,
right,
then you're screwed. So I like partnering with people because you're more liable if you're partnered with the right people, having much more of a balanced conversation about it, what it is.
So yeah,
But-
vested interest rather than
Right, but I didn't get into this business. When I started, there weren't private equity firms really. There weren't venture capital firms. That was just when all that stuff was starting. I got into the business because I had been, for a brief period of time, kind of involved in what now would be called hedge fund type trading stuff. And it was like just about the money. And that was boring to me. I didn't want to live my life just about the money. I was, I played team sports. I cared about camaraderie. I cared about like culture and doing stuff with people I wanted to hang out with. And so when I teamed up with my partners, we did it because we were like interested in the game of building a business and building a company. I never wanted to be in the money management business. That to me is like, that's not why I do this. To me, it's like, God, can we solve a problem? Can we build a company? You're going to get to hang out with a bunch of people. And that's the game I wanted to play, which is why you grew up in a team. You guys both grew up in a team sport, in the military and team stuff. And so I think we shared the team thing. Like we just sold a business that I started with some friends of mine. It was our second go around. We just sold the business for close to $1.5 billion, and we started it from scratch. And it was a lot of ups and downs along the ways of building the business. But at the end of the day, we're like fucking blood brothers. Like we've been through the war together, through the screaming matches, through the laughing, through the like, holy shit, is this going to happen or not? And when I look back on that experience, it's not going to be about what the check was for when we cashed it. It was going to be about the experiences of who you hung out with and what the whole thing was about. And so that's why I got into this. That's what I still like about it. Hopefully, other guys who make money, who give back to the communities, whether it's in Silicon Valley or whatever, I think a lot of people do it for the right reason. They want to help people like get involved in like a team-based game, which is what building a business should be. It's not about the one guy, it's about the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's such a good cultural fit for us because like Evan was saying, we took so many other meetings with people, and the second they walk in, it's just, how do we bankroll this thing? And like to us, we're like that's not the objective here.
All they ever talked about was money, and it was like Steve. The first thing that ever came out of his mouth was the network. Here's who I know. Here's who I can bring to the table. It wasn't money.
Well, there's only so
here's
much
the
I know.
expertise.
Right. I mean, we can hopefully the way we've helped you guys up to now is just by opening up doors. Right. Like our network combined with your network, hopefully, is better. And so the value of your network is having a higher probability you can get answers to questions. You're going to get a better chance to get information to help you make better decisions. Right. So your network, and which is why people go to MBA school. My daughter's husband or my son-in-law is going to go get his MBA. The most important reason you go back and get your MBA, I think, is the network you're going to build. If you're not going to go back to MBA school and you're going to stay in business, then building your network is super important because it's how you, through your network, it's how you get access to information to solve problems.
So throughout this time, tell us some like really significant high, meaning like the best business experience that you've had, if you can identify one, or maybe it's a series, and then the worst.
Okay, the worst is we bought a slaughterhouse in Houston, Texas. Actually, in Sealy, Texas. How old was I? I was 29 years old, and I knew nothing about the industry. And we bought this slaughterhouse, and if you own a slaughterhouse, the business is about somebody, you go buy cattle, and you put them through your facility, and you turn it into, meat that people are going to buy. Well, right after we closed, it didn't stop raining in Texas for 4 months. And there was so much rain in the fields, no one could get the cows out of the field into the slaughterhouse. So we had just paid, $20 million for this business that was making like $3 or $4 million a year. And from the day, like the week after we closed, there was like no cattle going through. Within, the first 4 months, we lost $3 million. We had no money to pay the bank. We just put a ton of our own money into this. we had put some of our friends' money into it. It was a freaking train wreck. And we were like horrified, like that we just were about to lose all this money that we just made. And so it was like, oh my God, we never thought that it would just rain and rain and rain and rain. And this business, which had been consistently successful, would just turn into a shit show right off the bat. So then this gets to like what the great story is. So my partner and I were going to work, and we happened to bump into this guy from Sara Lee. And Sara Lee owned the biggest slaughterhouse company in the United States. And they had decided for the corporate image that they shouldn't be in the slaughterhouse business. So they had decided they needed to get rid of this business in the next 45 days. And so we cut a deal with them where basically for $1 million, they gave us this business that was doing $1 billion in revenue, making $20 million a year for $1. So what we did is we went to all of our existing investors in the company that we bought in Texas, and for free, we felt so bad that we put them into this terrible deal. We gave them all free ownership in this company that Sara Lee had basically just handed to us. And we wound up selling the deal. We wound up using some of the cash flow from the Sara Lee thing to put into the other thing, save the other business, wound up making a couple times our money on that deal, but we made like 20 times or 30 times our money on the deal from Sara Lee. So by being in the game, like out of manna from heaven, right, came this unbelievable opportunity. But it felt great because so many of our investors like couldn't believe that we gave them a free piece of this other business for free. And we were like, well, if we hadn't been in this other business with you, we wouldn't have gotten this gift. And so that's an example of like a shit show, and then you get incredibly lucky.
Sometimes
right?
it just works out. Yeah.
Sometimes you just it was terrible, and then it was great.
That's crazy.
Out of all the things that you've seen, do you have a business or businesses that you saw and had the opportunity to invest in and didn't? Do you have any that stick out?
Yes. So
we talked about it earlier.
Yeah,
but I just want to know if that made
we had
the
an
list.
opportunity to invest in this company called RX Bar early on. And, we had these guys bring this product over to our office, and we all tried it, and we just didn't like it. And so they were really smart guys, and it was an interesting concept, but we just didn't like the product. And I don't know, 3 years later, they sold the company for $620 million. They changed the packaging, and the thing just took off. Now, I still didn't love the taste of the product. That's my own sense of taste.
Yeah.
But we missed out on what would have been, a great opportunity. That just happened recently. So, yeah, you miss things all the time.
Did they just sell?
Yeah, I think it closed 3 months ago? I think 2 or 3 months ago they sold it. It wound up, there's obviously a problem right now in how, for the big consumer packaged goods companies, where people are consuming different types of foods. Grocery is a difficult category. And so the big, CPG companies are looking for fast growing companies. And this is a super fast growing company. So if I think it was I forgot who bought it. It was either Quaker or Nestle or one of the big companies wound up buying it.
Do you have a favorite industry to be in or invest in?
Yes. We love the education space, so we own this company called School of Rock. And when we got involved in it, it was a small business. An entrepreneur had started it. I think there were 20 locations or something.
We have quite a few here in town.
Pardon me?
We have a few here in town.
Okay, so we got involved in the business, and we got involved in the business because the business model was about getting kids into an environment where they could work with other kids to learn how to play music. So it was taking music, which is an unbelievable opportunity for kids to grow in so many ways, turning it into a group activity and away from kids sitting in their basement with a person on a one-on-one basis. So we loved the business model, and we thought we could help them scale the business. And so as soon as we bought the business, we really worked on what was the mission or the purpose of the business. And the guys we had bought it from, their mission and purpose was like keeping rock and roll alive. To us, the business and the mission was way bigger. It was like giving kids a voice. So what we really did is we started working on changing what the business was about. And to us, it was like giving kids an opportunity to rock on stage and off stage for the rest of their life. Like giving kids an opportunity to feel a part of something or to get used to going on stage or doing something. So businesses and industries that I like the best or the most meaningful to me are what can you help young kids build self-esteem, feel good about themselves, and hopefully be more productive, better human beings. And so that's an example of a company we're still involved with. And now we have over 25,000 kids in the program. And, you know, when I get involved occasionally, meet with kids and parents who are involved in the program, I just hear so many stories about how it's changed so many families' lives.
I bet what's ever necessary right now with all the technology, you know, it's the Generation Z growing up with 2 tablets in front of their face since the age of 3, and that sense of community and getting out and like interfacing interpersonally, I think it is massively important to the youth. So it's really cool. I've been looking those up ever since we first met, and can I go to a concert one time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, Matt, we had one play at our event. The School of Rock here opened for the brouhaha.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
A lot of the bands have been great. Like Bono's been super cool about it. He let a lot of our kids, when he was doing his last tour, would bring the School of Rock kids to do sound checks as they were like, you know, preparing the day before. There have been a number of artists that have stepped up and helped. And we also do a lot of work, and you know, a lot of people in the music community have a hard time finding jobs, and so we provide tons of employment opportunities for people to teach guitar and teach voice and teach drums and stuff. So right now, that's one of the, you know, my favorite companies that we're involved with because of what it does, and hopefully scale-wise, it can be pretty meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Balancing work and family. What have you learned in the last several decades as far as like what are your keys to success? Have you been successful? And if you haven't, what have you learned in your past that you can impart on some of us?
No one has balance. I
Right.
think it's bullshit to think you can have balance in your life.
Mm-hmm.
There's times that you're going to be so busy, you're not going to be able to, you know, if you're complete. Listen, I think being a parent is the most important job we have as a human being. Raising good kids and raising great kids. I think it's the most important thing you can do as a person. So I think that's all about teaching your kids that if you, by example, that nothing as important as being inspired. So while there were many times I wasn't around a lot, hopefully what my kids learned from me is my dad found something to do that he was really inspired to do and he loved, and I'm going to hopefully find something in my life to be inspired to do. I don't believe there's balance. There's times in your life when you don't have as much going on. There's times you have too much going on. So don't seek balance in your life. Things will just seek whatever level they seek. Try and inspire your kids through your career, and that's where I'm at on it. I mean, you know, just play the game to win.
Right.
I like that.
What have you found that's helped you maintain focus? Like I've been talking to a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs. You know, there's a surge, I think, in meditation and yoga and a bunch of other things to kind of maintain focus. Have you found something in your life that helps that?
I think it's really easy, and I think you get a ton of that training in the military. I think it's really simple. Get up every morning and work out. It's going to help you sleep better, and you're going to at least accomplish something during the day. Don't think you're fucking superhuman and only need 4 hours of sleep. Sleep 7 or 8 hours a day.
Can you tell that to Evan's face one more time, please?
Sleep 7 or 8 hours a day.
One more.
Your brain detoxes at night when you sleep. Your brain shrinks, and that is how your body detoxes how your brain detoxes all the toxins that are in your head. Leave. Being tired and feeling tired is toxicity in your brain. If you stay up too much and too long, you get toxicity in your brain, which screws your head up in 1,000 different ways. And so I'd say get up every morning, work out, and make sure you get enough sleep. it's not that more complicated than that.
Well, that's actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
The
All
other
things
piece
you can follow.
Right?
out of the CEOs that you've seen, which I mean hundreds at this point, is there something that you've seen in the CEOs that you've worked with that is kind of a factor that you would say like, oh, you know what, that's kind of a good trait or the most important trait for a CEO to have?
Well, the one thing I'd say is I think it's more the timing, the company, the sector that's more important than the CEO. I don't believe in magic men. I just don't. I've seen CEOs in the right sector at the right time that thought they were rock stars, and I compare them against other people, CIOs, and I'm like, God, why is that CEO doing so well in his company, and this guy feels so much more competent and isn't doing as well? It's because of what we like to say, if you fish in a pond with a lot of fish, you're going to be a really good fisherman that day. If you fish in a pond and there's no fish, you can be a better fisherman. You're not going to catch anything. So the thing I'd say is fish in a pond with a lot of fish. Give yourself a really good chance to win. Where there's a lot of customers, it's a good value proposition. So CEOs who play in the right space, where you have a better chance to win, is the smartest thing. So knowing where to fish is really important.
Guys that have inspired you, whether that's, family members, businessmen, like who inspired you throughout the course of the last 30 years?
People that inspire me the most are when I meet guys that are a lot older than me and still love what they do. Like the guys that I look up to are guys in their 70s and 80s. And even when I was in my 20s and 30s, I used to love hanging out with guys in their 70s and 80s that were still all in, that were still love to go to work and love to hang out with the guys they were hanging out or gals at work. To me, those are the people that still get up every morning and are excited to do what they're doing. And so, there are so many people I've met with who've been great mentors to me who are just significantly older. I mean, when we started our first company with Blue Cross Blue Shield, we met this guy who was the number 2 guy at Eastman Kodak. Eastman Kodak at the time was one of the biggest companies in the country when people were, using film all the time. We met this guy and he took a liking to us and kind of put his arm around us and said, I'll help you young guys in your career. And then we started this other company and everything went wrong right off the bat. And we called him up and we said, we're having so many problems, we needed your help. And he kind of became chairman of that company. And that company wound up becoming our first $1 billion business. And I do believe without his help, we never would have got there. His name was John Robertson. And again, we treated him with respect and we were open to his help. And he loved the fact that we were young kids, willing to run through walls, scrappy, and just loved hanging out with us. So it's like we brought him so much joy and he brought us so much wisdom. It was just a great partnership. So, yeah, that's an example of somebody who really helped us.
That's phenomenal. I feel like because every time you're in business, and I'm new to it, about 4 or 5 years now, but every time you take kind of a milestone, you're like, man, I'm really getting to know this. And then, you meet someone like you, and over the course of the last, 8 months since we first met, it's just been just a wealth of knowledge. And it really, if you're able to be humble enough, you realize how much you don't fucking know when you meet people that have been in the business for 35, 40 years. And the biggest takeaway I've told Evan this from even this whole process is just like, shut up and learn, because you're not the smartest guy in the room. That's been my huge takeaway. I just have to listen to you guys that have done this time after time.
I think so much of how our brains work is pattern recognition. So obviously the more you've seen, the more patterns you recognize, which is good in some regards. But the reason most great businesses are started by younger people is because they're not blocked by a lot of patterns and things that older people would say, it can't be done. So the advantage of being young is you're not stuck in thinking what you've seen and you're willing to take risks and just view the world completely different. The advantage of being older is once maybe a market's been established, you can take your network, your connections, and your pattern recognition and hopefully bring a lot of those lessons. So I think there's a good mix between all of the creativity that comes with youth and a little bit of maybe pattern recognitions, which comes with being old.
Have you read a book that is, or several that you would recommend to any guys starting out?
I learn better through conversation than by books. So my best learning moments go when I go meet with people and talk to people. I don't process information as well reading in a book because I don't get the emotional connection. So, part of the way your brain works is you remember things more when you have some sort of an emotional connection. When you smell it, you taste it, you feel it, you have a personal interaction, it like lodges in your memory. That's how we work as human beings. When I read a book, it generally doesn't tend to stick with me as much because I don't get the same sort of emotional connection. So my greatest learnings are when I go and I hang out with people and they tell me stories and I remember their stories and I feel it like down into my core and I remember the stories and those lessons. So for me personally, not as big of a believer in reading books for information, but dealing with human beings and getting my information that way.
That totally makes sense. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it leads me to my next question. I've had these CEO groups reach out, in the last several months, like, hey, do you want to join? And we all get together and talk, basically. So have you seen these things? Do they work? Would you suggest them? Like, one is called Vistage. I think you and I talked about it.
Yeah. So there's like YPO and all these groups.
Yeah, YPO. Yeah.
YPO.
And a lot of people love them because it helps them build their network. Right. So I think a lot of people join YPO because they say, oh, it's lonely at the top. You as a bunch of CEOs can get together and share stories. The people, and I have a ton of friends in YPO, and they like it because of how it's helped them build their network.
Yeah.
I never did it because I would rather have spent that time, we call it on work stuff, being in the game, than sitting with a bunch of other guys.
Right.
I'm just more of a doer than just to sit around with a bunch of guys, tell me about this, tell me. I just like being in the game. And so I just never got around to it. And I'm not saying that was the right or wrong thing, but I just chose not to.
So you prefer to communicate face-to-face, but when you do you spend a lot of time writing emails? Do you spend a lot of time on phone calls? Do you spend equal amount of time communicating? How do you communicate throughout the day?
Nothing replaces face-to-face meetings. It's like I told you when we got involved in this. Come to Chicago. I'll come out to your guys' place. Let's spend time together. I just don't think anything replaces FaceTime. But not FaceTime in regards to the FaceTime app, but spending time with each other. I just think that's how you build relationship. That's how you build trust. Trust is everything in regards to, because when you get into a disagreement or you're discussing different ways to do it, I think your ability to be open and honest and just open comes from trust. So I think early on in relationships, FaceTime is everything because that's how you develop trust, and that's how you can have debates about things where hopefully the best answer wins. Yes, everyone does a ton of emails, but like today, if you've seen me, I haven't used my phone once.
No.
So when I am in meetings with people, I take my phone, I put it away. I don't do emails. I told my wife this morning when I came here, you're not going to hear from me. I'm going to be all in. If I'm going to get and spend the day with these guys, I don't want to be distracted. I'm spending the day together, and that's what I'm doing. So, I think looking at your week, and so I knew tomorrow, I didn't plan a heavy day because I knew based on what my schedule was, I was going to be all in today, but people do expect you to return their emails, and so you kind of have to, unfortunately. But just make sure you build your schedule around times when you're face-to-face doing what we're doing, and then give yourself the next day or, the day after where you block out 3 or 4 hours and you're just crunch. I use planes for doing tons of emails. I use weekends for doing, 3 or 4 hour blocks where no one's going to bug me for emails. I don't think of the day as Monday through Friday I work and Saturday and Sunday I don't.
Right.
If I want to take off a Wednesday afternoon to go hang with a friend or see my kids or see my grandkids, I will. And then maybe I'll work all day on a Saturday because I know no one's going to bug me. So I don't think of the work week like most people do.
That's actually how I look at the week, and I think it's way more valuable for your time. It's because if you're having a crappy Sunday, might as well go enjoy yourself, blow off some steam, and then you'll be by Sunday. You're like, all right, let's do this.
It's funny. I've had advice from someone before, from another CEO, that said if you're trying to get a hold of another business owner, email them early morning on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
He said, because if they're like any of the rest of us, they're still. And
that's
how
I know if people are all in.
Yeah.
Like early on in relationships, I text new people that work with me or CEOs that we're working with. I text them on weekends and call them, and I see how long it takes for them to return the text and email. And if they don't return the text and email that quickly, I don't. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, the first time, but I want them to know I'm available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, generally. And if they don't hear from me, like people that have been emailing me all day, and if it's something that's important, I'll let them know I was at an all-day meeting with people. I didn't pick up my phone, but I'm available the next 2 days. Like, what do you need? So you need boundaries. Like, everybody needs boundaries. But like, if you're in this game and be all in, which means be prepared to work. Like, if you got to work all day Saturday or all day Sunday, you just do it. Yeah. That gets to the balance thing.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are building an amazing company right now. Like, when we have companies that are growing super fast, like your business is growing fast, like, just like explain to your wife, like, this is your wife's or your spouse's or whoever, your partners. They're like, this is a special moment. I have an opportunity right now to do something really special. It has nothing to do with, call it, the long-term relationship and family I want to build, but please respect the fact that I have this window right now and I'm all in. And hopefully you'll respect the fact that I am all in, because I'm all in.
Right. Well, that brings us to basically the close, which is, we try to get them in, get them out. I hope this is our first episode of several that we'll have.
Many.
So anytime you come back, we want to have you. I'll kick you out the questions next time, but I like hitting people cold too. I like to just see how they're going to answer.
We might
things.
see him in Vegas, and if we do, then we'll have video up rolling then, and we'll do a follow-on immediately to this, which will be a perfect two-parter. So if you can make that happen, that would be awesome. We'll absolutely do
a couple of different episodes. And I know typically, like, you're not some of the other guys we have here, we let them put out their social and stuff like that. You don't want that. So I already knew that, but I was going to ask anyway, just in case.
Throw it out.
Appreciate everything that you brought to the table. I can't emphasize that enough. Some of the points here, just from me, which is, finding somebody that you can bounce ideas off, that you're open to their information, and kind of some of the things that we talked about early on. Like, if a person has too much emphasis on specific things, that's why I shy away from them. And some of the things I really like about Steven is he's like hyper energetic. And it's positive energy. He like really presses you to answer hard questions. And really, I think it's fucking fantastic. So I definitely appreciate that. Some of the things that I keyed in on early on, you wore Vans to Vans and jeans when I first met you, and I was like, okay, I could probably work with him. He's not wearing a 3-piece suit, and it's super, stuffy and kind of a dick. But you were very candid, very direct, very, very pressing on very difficult questions to ask and answer. And really, there's just no ego. Like, that's the fucking crazy thing. I think that's the one of the coolest things, are like zero ego.
Well, I've met tons of people that are super smart, and I've seen them fail. Mm-hmm. And I've met a bunch of people that I didn't think were that smart, and I've seen them be wildly successful. So I don't believe that it's always necessary, or success is given to people who are the smartest in the room. Mm-hmm. I don't think it has anything to do with it. So again, get in the game. It's not an IQ test.
I fucking love that. That is perfect. To get in the game, it's not an IQ test. Thanks a lot, Steven. I appreciate it. Look forward to more.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.